see
This
my screen,
conference
guys.
will now be recorded.
Okay, guys, I welcome you all to this Microsoft Endpoint Configuration Manager online training session. First of all, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Kashif. I am from India, Mumbai. I have somewhere around practical 13 years of IT experience. I have expertise on various technologies like SCCM, Intune, Active Directory, application packaging, Azure, PowerShell. Primarily on SCCM, I have been working on SCCM for the past 10 years now, and I have worked in SCCM level 1, level 2, level 3 team. Now I'm working as SCCM architect, wherein my primary roles and responsibilities to implement SCCM in companies. So I have implemented SCCM in various companies so far. So my main uh, task is to do the evaluation, then designing, and then implement SCCM in companies. Apart from SCCM, I mean the project task, I'm involved in training, wherein I do classroom training, online training, and offline training, corporate training, wherein I have trained more than 28,000 students globally. I am a BSc IT graduate. I did my graduation from Mumbai University. These are my website, blog, email address, and Skype ID. Okay, that's about me, guys. Let me take you to the next slide, which talks about the duration of this course. This course is for 1 month or 35 days maximum. Okay, 35 days, and daily we will do 1 hour session on daily basis. Okay, Monday to Saturday. Sunday we will not have any session. That will start at 11:30 a.m. IST India time, which is 6 a.m. UK time, right? That is Okan, you are in Denmark, right? So that is, I think, 7
It's
a.m.
7 o'clock. It's 7 a.m.
Yeah, Danish time, right? And for Muhammad, I think you are in PST, right? In US, that will be 10 p.m. PST. Okay, so that's the time. So you need to check your time zone, guys. 11:30 is the India time zone. Okay, so 6 a.m. is the UK time, 7 a.m. Danish time, and 10 p.m. PST. That's the duration of the course. Daily 1 hour session we will do Monday to Saturday. Sunday we will not have any class. Now, so first of all, I would like to give you the introduction about this course. This is basically a Microsoft product, and Microsoft started this in the year 1994, right? And they have given the name as a system management server. Okay, and what they did, they changed the name in the year 2007. They have given the name as System Center Configuration Manager. So previously they released this version as a System Management Server. That was the first name, SMS 1.0, then SMS 2.0 in 1999, then SMS 2003 in the year 2003, then SCCM 2007, SCCM 2012, SCCM 1511. These three versions released in the year 2016. These three versions released in the year 2017. These three versions released in the year 2018. These three versions released in the year 2019. But in the year 2019, they changed the name again from SCCM to MECM, Microsoft Endpoint Configuration Manager 1910. This happened in October 2019. These are the three versions released in the year 2020. These three versions released in the year 2021, and these versions released in the year 2022. The latest and greatest version of SCCM is MECM 2211. This happened in November 2022, last year, 2 months back. This version released by Microsoft, 2211. This is the latest and greatest version of SCCM at the moment, which you can install in the production environment. So a historical background, it is almost like 30 years now. It started in 1994, now 2023, right? Next year, in 2024, it will be 30 years, right? This product will be there in the market for the last 30 years now. I mean, next year it will be 30 years. So that's the historical background of SCCM. What is SCCM? It is basically to manage devices. You can control your devices. Let's say you have thousands and thousands of devices. For example, you have like 100,000 devices, right? Some devices are in Mumbai, some devices are in Chennai, some devices are in London. You can install your SCCM server. For example, this is your SCCM server. You can control these devices, like you can deploy application, you can deploy policy, you can get hardware inventory of the devices, you can get software inventory, you can monitor the device software utilization, you can do asset management, right? You can deploy operating system on the devices, updates, patch deployment, compliance setting, power policies. So it is basically, you will have complete control of the devices through SCCM server. So SCCM is the device management solution. Okay, now previously we used to have these exams 20-243 and 70-703, but both of them are retired by Microsoft. So you don't have any exam for SCCM at the moment. Previously we used to take these exams and become SCCM certified, but we don't have it now. Now why you should learn SCCM? So there are some factors. Suppose you are going to learn any new technology, you need to understand why it is needed. What is the scope of this product at the moment, what will be the future of this product. So you see, this product is there for the past 25 years, almost like 30 years now, right? This product holds 43% of market share. Okay, wherever you go, almost all the countries, you will find SCCM in big organization and medium organization. You may not find SCCM in small organization, but in medium size organization and big organization you will find SCCM almost everywhere. Less number of competitors, it has competitors. SCCM competitors are IBM Big Fix, then we have Landesk, then we have Tanium, then we have Altris, Workspace ONE, right? These are some of the competitors of SCCM, but very tiny in front of SCCM. SCCM is like giant in front of these tiny competitor with 43% of market share. 43 means almost like 50%, half, right? Almost all big size and medium size companies you will find SCCM. So it's a big giant in front of these tiny competitors. Good vacancies are there, people are earning good salary. For example, if you are in US and Canada or Australia or European countries, you will expect a salary of 45 US dollar per hour, right? And if you are in India, you can expect a salary of 800,000 Indian rupees. This is average salary, INR, Indian rupees, per year. This is an annual salary. It is also good, right? Resources are available. For example, if you are stuck somewhere in IBM Big Fix, you will not find any resources online. But for SCCM, the moment you type in, you will get hundreds of websites. So resources are available which will guide you to fix your problems. Then jobs are available on Naukri, Monster, Indeed, Dice, LinkedIn. Multiple job portals are available. So you need to apply for SCCM related opportunities after this training so that you will start getting interview calls. It is the third largest selling product of Microsoft. Microsoft is selling number one, Office, number one, operating system, number two, Office, number three, MECM. This is SCCM. So this is the new name, right? Previously we used to call it as SCCM. It's the same product with a new name. Easy to learn. Why it is easy to learn? Because it does not have any coding languages. It does not have any programming languages. It does not have any other tools which you need to write any code or anything. It is all GUI based. You have the steps ready, everything is predefined. You just have to use those steps and you will be able to deploy application or updates or whatever the task you are given, you will be able to achieve that one. It is going to stay in the market for the next 10 years at least. Okay, it can go beyond that, but at least as per the anticipation, it can you can expect this for at least 10 years. So that is the reason, that is these are the factors why you should learn SCCM. It has a good opportunity, okay, good vacancy, good salary. Now, today we are going to learn about these sites: central administration site server, primary site server, and secondary site server. So these are the three site servers in SCCM. We have to understand about these site servers. So central administration site, primary site, and secondary site. Now, central administration site needs a database to store its data. Primary site also needs a database to store the data, and secondary also needs a database to store the data. Each site server needs a database for the storage. Okay, so it will be separate database. So let's say database 1, it will be database 2, it will be database 3. Okay, like this. So separate database. Now, central administration site is an optional site. Primary site is mandatory site, and secondary is an optional site, right? Now, how many devices you can have in one central administration site hierarchy? The maximum limit is 825,000 devices. In primary site, maximum limit is 175,000 devices. In secondary site, you can have maximum 15,000 devices. So you see, it's a big number, right? If you have a company which has total less than 175,000 devices, then you can use only one primary site, only one server to manage up to 175,000 devices, right? If you have a company which is having more than this number, let's say 200,000 devices or 300,000 devices, then you need more than one primary site server. Okay, so these are the site servers, and they can be installed on Windows Server 2012 or greater. Windows Server 2012 or 2012 R2 or 16 or 19. Okay, or 2022, the latest one. This one is the mandatory side. Any questions so far from anyone? You guys can interrupt me anytime, okay, and ask question. That's I won't mind, guys. Anyone? Asif, Bala, Mohammed, Okan, Tina?
No questions.
Okay, so central, primary, and secondary. These are the only three site servers in SCCM. Okay, now we have to learn about central administration site in great details. What is a central admin site? What is a primary site and secondary site in today's session? So what is a central administration site server? So these are the points which will give you more clear picture what is a central administration site, and when we do the practical, then you will get even more clear picture. Okay, so for now you understand with the theory, but when we do the practical, you will get um, more clear picture. Now, central is an optional site server. That's point number one, optional. Why it is optional? Because it is needed only when you have more than one primary site server. So primary site, let's say primary 1, how many devices a primary can handle? Any idea?
One
One
lakh
primary,
75,000.
1,75,000 devices one primary site can handle, right? Suppose if you
Yeah.
have more than 100 primary 175,000 devices, then one primary site is not sufficient to handle all the devices, then you need more than one primary site. So you will have to have the second primary site, let's say two primary site. You can have 2, 3, 4, 5, that's up to all depends on the number of devices. So now let's say there are total 300,000 devices. Now some of the devices are being managed by primary site 1, some of them are being managed by primary site 2. Now the moment you have more than one primary site, then you need a CAS. Otherwise CAS is not needed. CAS is needed when you have more than one primary site. You see point number 4, it is required when you have more than one primary site. Now it sits on the top of the hierarchy, it will be always on the top. So it will be on the top, then you will have in the middle section, you will have primary, and in the bottom you will have secondary. So top, central, then primary, then secondary. But when you don't have CAS, then who will be on the top? The primary will become on the top,
Primary.
right? So this will become on the top, right? So central comes into the picture when you have more than one primary site. Understood? Suppose if you have just one single primary site, then do we need a CAS? No, we don't need a CAS. Okay. So point number 3 is it manages primary site. Basically, the role of central administration site is to manage primary site. Nothing else. It does not do anything. It collects data from primary site and it does not do anything apart from managing primary site. It does not manage client machine. It does not manage secondary site server. It manages primary site server. Okay. Now, so it is an optional site server. It sits on the top of the hierarchy. It manages primary site. It is required when you have more than one primary site. It needs SQL Server database. As I mentioned earlier, CAS will have a database, separate database. It will store the data in the database. For a storage, it will have a separate database. Now, CAS needs data from where? So primary site will be there, primary 1, and let's say primary 2. There are two primary site server and both have database, right? And both are being managed by this CAS. Now, from where it will collect data? CAS will collect data from database of primary site server. Database, the primary 1 is gonna replicate the data the CAS database. Similarly, primary 2 is gonna replicate the data to the CAS database. Okay, so it collects data from primary site database. It does not interact with the client machine. For example, you have thousands and thousands of machine. Let's say there are 50,000 machine. Who will manage these 50,000 machine? Either primary or secondary. CAS will not be managing these machines. Okay, CAS has got nothing to do with these client machine. Plus, if you have secondary site server, secondary will always come below primary. It will always be below primary, right? Secondary will be on the bottom of the hierarchy. Now, it will not have anything to do with the secondary as well. So not with client machine and the secondary, right? It does not have anything to do with the client machine and the secondary. Okay. Now, so it does not interact with the client machine, does not support client assignment. It supports maximum 825,000. Now, it does not support client machine, but the number of client machine in total, if you calculate the number of total number of devices in this CAS hierarchy, it should not be beyond, in one CAS hierarchy, it should not be more than 825,000. Okay, that's the maximum limit. And point number 11, it can support how many primary site it can support? 25. So primary 1, primary 2, it can have maximum how many? Primary site 25. Maximum 25 primary site it can support. That's the maximum limit of primary site. That's the maximum limit of the client machine. It can be installed on Windows Server 2012 or greater. Okay, that's the CAS. I hope you guys are clear with this CAS. Any question? You can let me know. Okay, so now the next slide talks about primary site server. Primary is what? Primary is the main site server. Okay, without this, if you don't have primary, you don't have SCCM. Simple as that. Because you can't do anything with CAS. You can't install secondary without a primary. So CAS will not be managing devices. Secondary you cannot install without a primary. So if you don't have primary, you don't have SCCM. So primary is the heart of SCCM. You have to have at least one primary site server to manage devices. So it's a mandatory site. It manages devices in well-connected network. Suppose you have, for example, you have a location called New York. New York is your headquarter. New York is your headquarter. And of this company is ABC Private Limited. ABC Private Limited. That's the company. Now in this company in New York, you have one office, right? In that office there are multiple floors, and on each floor you have like 10,000 devices. 10,000 devices, right? So how many total devices are there in headquarters? 50,000 devices. 10 plus 10 plus 10 plus 10 plus 10, 50,000 devices. Who will manage these 50,000 devices? So we can install one single primary site server, and single primary site can manage all these computers, these 50,000 devices. Why? Because all of them are on good connection. They are on at one location, good connectivity. But so primary site will be able to manage all these devices, and it is under the limit, right? The maximum number of one primary site can support 175,000 devices, but the total number of devices is only 50,000, right? So one primary site is sufficient to handle all the 50,000 computers load. It will be able to manage these devices. That is what it is mentioned here. Manages, sorry, the second point, manages clients in well connected network. Now it manages secondary site server. Now secondary comes into the picture when you have primary. I mean, when you have devices in branch offices. So suppose you have devices in another location. For example, Mumbai. 2,000 devices are in Mumbai. Then you have like Mexico. 5,000 devices are in Mexico. Then you have like London. 3,000 devices. These are branch offices. So who will manage these extra devices? The devices which are on internet. These devices are on LAN network, but these devices are on WAN network, wide area network. So LAN is always better than WAN. You will have not good connectivity on WAN. So when you have devices on WAN network, right? So what you will do, you will need a help of secondary site. Let's say secondary one in Mumbai. We will install another secondary site in Mexico, another secondary site in London. And these secondary will be managing these 2,000 devices, 5,000 devices, 3,000 devices. Secondary will not have its own policy. Secondary cannot have its own policy. It will always get the policy from primary. So primary will be supplying the policy to these secondary site, and contents. So primary will be supplying the 1 minute, somebody calling. Excuse me, guys. Okay, now so secondary will be taking the policies and contents from the primary. So whatever the policies and contents it's getting from primary, it is going to pass on to the, sorry, it's going to pass on to the uh, devices in Mumbai. Similarly, it is going to pass on to the devices in Mexico, and it is going to pass on the devices in London. So secondary comes into the picture when you have branch offices, the computers in branch offices, right? So primary site will manage these secondary site as well. So it is going to manage these 50,000 devices, plus it's going to manage these secondary site too. So that is what point number 3 is. Point number 4, it requires database to store the data. For storage, it needs database, and it will collect data from where? From these devices, these 50,000 devices. It's going to collect the data from these 50,000 devices and pass on to the database. Plus it is going to collect the data from secondary side database. So secondary will also have a database. Each secondary will have database, right? Each secondary will have database. So it is going to collect the data from secondary side database too, right? So all the secondary side database will get replicated to the primary database. So it is gonna collect data from client computers, from New York computers, plus secondary side database, right? It replicates the data to central administration side database. So in case if the primary site is a member of a central administration site, let's say central is on the top and central also has a database, then it will replicate the data here. But this is not uh, true in every case, because in some of the cases you will not have central administration side. So this point number 6 is conditional. If the central administration site is there, then only this point is valid. Otherwise, this point is not valid. It supports client assignment, right? It supports maximum number of client. How many client machine can be there? 175,000 devices. So devices, number of devices in the headquarter plus the number of devices in the branch office. In total, it should not increase 175,000 in one primary site hierarchy. It can have maximum 250 secondary site. That's the limit. It can be installed on Windows Server 2012 or greater. That's your primary site server, guys. I hope you guys understood this primary site server.
Yeah.
Now the next one is secondary site server. Secondary is needed when you have branch office computer. Secondary cannot exist without a primary. You cannot install a secondary directly. It is installed only when you have devices in branch offices, and it can only be installed when you have primary site. Otherwise, it cannot be installed. Now, it is an optional site server. Why optional? Because if you don't have branch office, you don't install secondary. Just like central, if you don't have more than one primary, you don't install central. Similarly, if you don't have branch office computers, you don't install secondary. It cannot exist without a primary. It is used when you it is used when you need to manage devices in remote location. Why? Because to control the network bandwidth. Otherwise, if primary side will start managing devices on WAN network, the network will be choked up. So that's the reason we need help of secondary side. Now secondary needs database as well. Either you go with SQL Express or SQL Server database, anything of your choice. But we will go with this one, SQL Express, because this is free of cost. Okay, generally we use this in production environment too. Then it collects data from client machine. So secondary, you see, this is your primary site. Primary site, it has a database and it is there in New York. 50,000 devices it is managing. It is in headquarter. So primary site is collecting data from here and storing in the database. Now what about the devices in Mumbai, devices in London, right? So 2,000 devices and 3,000 devices. So we need secondary one here, which will be managing devices, and secondary one will have database. So it's going to store the data of these 2,000 devices into this database. Then you will have secondary site 2, which will also have database. It's going to collect the data from here and store in the database. Now whatever the data it has collected, the secondary, it is going to pass on to the database. It's going to pass on to the database. So that is what it is saying. It is going to replicate the data to the primary site database. It can support up to maximum 15,000 client machines. Maximum number of client machine a secondary can have 15,000. It does not interact with central administration side. Suppose central is on the top, it will be talking to primary but not talking to secondary. Okay, it will not be talking to secondary. It can be installed on Windows Server 2012 or greater. That's the secondary side, guys. So the hierarchy is like this. If you have one single location, no other location, then it is called a small size companies. So in a small size company, we just have one location. So let's say 50,000 devices are in Houston. One primary site is going to manage all these 50,000 devices. For example, you have medium size organization. So 99% of time you will have this kind of architecture. You will have 50,000 devices here in Houston. Primary side will be managing these 50,000 devices. But what about the devices in Seattle? Let's say 3,000 devices in Seattle and 4,000 devices in Boston. So secondary one will be managing these 3,000 devices, and secondary two will be managing these 4,000 devices, and it will be taking policies and contents from the primary. This is the ideal scenario. Almost everywhere you will have this kind of architecture. Third, it's a big organization where you have more than 175,000. So once a primary site is not sufficient, you will have multiple primary site, P1, P2, P3, P4, P5. You can have maximum up to 25. So On the top you will have CAS. CAS comes into the picture when you have big organization like more than one primary site. Very rare kind of deployment, but you might see this kind of deployment in big organization like Accenture, Deloitte, IBM, Cognizant, Wipro, HCL. Okay, guys. Hmm. Now tomorrow, now database replication, whatever the data is, secondary collects from the client machines in the branch of it, it's going to pass on to the primary. Whatever the data primary collects, it's going to pass on to the central. Now database replication happens from downward to upward like this. Now tomorrow when we meet, we will discuss about these roles. These are components in SCCM. Roles, or you can call them as components. Okay, we'll discuss about these components in SCCM. Okay, so today we have discussed about primary, secondary, and central administration site server. Any question from anyone?
Kashif, can you explain site assignment? This thing actually confused me. Uh, in the secondary site, while we are reading,
Site
you said,
assignment means secondary does not support, only primary is the one um, which supports site assignment. Site assignment means, for example, you have devices in New York. So the devices in your 50,000 devices, they will be assigned to a primary site server. Assigned means they are member of which organization? Primary site. So let's say this is your primary site. They are member of this one, the primary site. For example, you are in HCL headquarter, HCL Delhi, right? So HCL Delhi. Now this is you, for example. Now you are part of this HCL Delhi. HCL Delhi is headquarter. Now suppose you are not in Delhi now, you are in different location. For example, you are in Mumbai now, right? You will still be part of this HCL, right? You are at a different location, but you are assigned to HCL. Understood? So machines
yes,
in all the region will be assigned to primary site, whether it is on branch location or the headquarter. It will be assigned to a primary site because everything is managed by primary site. Okay, guys, any question?
Yeah, Tina here.
Yes, Tina.
Regarding the secondary site, you said that it is used to manage in remote locations, and you
Mm.
specifically said that to control the bandwidth. Could you just explain on that?
So suppose you have I gave you this example, New York headquarter, 50,000 devices, primary site managing these devices because they are on LAN network. But devices in Mumbai, 2,000 devices in Mumbai, primary site will not be able to manage these devices in Mumbai. Why? Because they are on WAN network. So there will be a huge traffic between the client machine because the number is very high, 2,000, right? So the number is very high. So they will try to, the primary side will be collecting data from these 2,000 devices. It will be sending policies to these 2,000 devices. So bandwidth, so every location, so from New York to Mumbai, there is a network line. You will have a network line, right? Now the network line will be like 100 megabit per second, 100 megabit per second. So what will happen if the data transfer is very high between these two locations? What will happen? This network will choke up. Then what will happen? The devices from London I mean the New York and Mumbai, they will not be able to communicate to each other. So network team will get the high utilization between these two locations, and they will ask you, do not you know, use this kind of connection. If the line is good, let's say you have like 50 GB line, then you don't need a secondary site. For example, in your house, everyone is connected with Wi-Fi. Everyone start downloading some files like video. For example, if everyone is watching some videos on their mobile phones or computer, what will happen? Everyone will get low network connectivity. Understood? Clear?
Yeah. Yes.
What's the question? Just wondering, can we achieve this architect CAS primary, secondary in AWS and Azure? Yes, we can. We can do that in AWS Azure. I will be showing in Azure. Okay. Same thing, you can do it in AWS as well. These are public data center. So SCCM, you can install it on your computer or you can install it on public data center. I will show you the lab specification tomorrow. Okay. So this is my number, guys, WhatsApp number and calling number. If you would like to continue from tomorrow, you need to make payment, enroll to this course. I am gonna start the course tomorrow 11:30 a.m. IST India time. So those who are interested to continue from tomorrow, you need to do the enrollment today itself. Okay, guys. Any question before we wrap it up? Okan, any question from your end?
No, Keshav, thank you. It was good.
Okay, guys. Muhammad, Asif,
Yeah, Kashif sir, will this recording be available for us as well?
yes, every day you will get the recording.
Mm,
I'm gonna create one WhatsApp group for all the people who
mm,
have done the enrollment, and
mm,
then I will be sharing the recorded videos after each session so that you guys can
mm.
download them.
Okay.
Okay, guys. Okay, so I hope the session was informative. We'll meet tomorrow, and this is my number. If you guys are um, willing to join from tomorrow, let me know. Bye now. Bye, everyone.